this was the point of the video, is to understand why your potting soils are not conducive to growing plants. You need to buy good potting soil or ideally make your own. Hey everyone, what is going on? Welcome back to another video. Today, I promised it and I am going to deliver. We're just going to speak briefly today about composting and potting soil standards here in Australia and the process that they go through to create a bag of potting soil that you then buy from the hardware store or the garden center or things like this. Okay. There's a few really important reasons why I wanted to break this down. Okay. One is because there's a lot of assumptions that we make as gardeners. When you see certain labels, you see certain things on there, we make assumptions that it is probably a lot better than it is. Okay. Number two is that I also want to address that even though it is simple to go and buy a bag of this soil from the hardware store, it is also very, very simple to be able to make your own and to source quality ingredients for your potting soils and composts to make sure that you can have a thriving good one at home already, without the need to go and buy all of these highly processed and manufactured products. Now, let's break down a couple of things, okay? So first and foremost, what we're talking about here is bagged potting soils and bagged compost and garden soils and things like this that you see at the hardware store. We're using one in my chili side-by-side experiment. So if you go and jump over to the chili side-by-side, you'll be able to see us using this particular soil, and we're hoping to improve it and to bring some life back to it. Now, when we're going for say a potting soil from the garden center, we're looking at two different particular types, okay? Well, there's a whole bunch of different bags of stuff. You have garden soil, which is just literally just, well, I don't even know if you can call it soil, but it's dirt, okay? So it can just it's filling stuff. There's no nutrients really in that or anything like that. It's just dirt. Okay. So then, then we've got things like potting soils. Okay. Then we have like a basic potting soil, which has no additives. It's just it fits a standard for drainage and pH and these types of things for a potting soil. Okay. And then you have a premium potting soil, which is often with some added fertilizers and things like this, which can give you some food for a prolonged period of time. Most of us would have known that already and probably go for the longer term premium potting soils because that gives you some food and it can allow you to grow something in it. Seeing as we're going with organic living soil practices here at the Shed Organics, that's all I like to do. And I want to promote that we want to grow organic food at home. If you're listening to this video, you're probably highly likely along that same train of thought. Now, with these particular processes that they go through to create these potting soils and composts, they're essentially trying to maximize profit. And they're also trying to minimize workload and trying to make it as streamlined as possible. When you're pushing out bag after bag after bag, day after day, week after week for so many people, it's pretty impossible to sustainably source your products, to make sure that you're keeping all of this soil health and things alive in the soil. And it's also hard to limit costs and labor costs in doing so. I want to give a few flowers and a shout out to Kane at Red Soil Organics up in Gympie in Queensland. Do yourself a favor and look up his operation. His composting operation is one of the best I've seen. So please have a check out of that. He is really, really detailed in terms of what's going in to make these composts absolutely fire. They're biodynamic and they're organic and everything. So if you really want a good example, go check out someone like Kane. But what these big companies are doing, first and foremost, is they heat treat and sterilize their mix. So you're getting your compost heated to a degree. It's essentially pasteurization, really. It's killing off all of the life in there, good and bad. So they need to make sure that they're not putting anything in there that's going to harm you or go into your food, because otherwise there's a lot of money liable to that. So instead of going, let's try and make sure that we've got good beneficial microbes and get rid of the bad ones, they just wipe out everything. So it's not soil, it's dirt. It's literally dirt. There's no life to it. So you can't really call it soil. So it's eliminated everything. The heat treating initially eliminates everything. So we've got dead soil to begin with. Now, that's not the be all and end all about it. Okay. The second part of it is, what do they have in there and where did they source it from? Okay. If you've been to one of these waste management recycling places where, if you live in suburbia, okay, the garbage truck comes around and they throw all your green waste into a bin. Or if you've done some gardening and you throw it in a trailer and take it down to the tip, there's a huge green waste pile. Okay. That green waste pile is turned back into compost and a lot of the time sold back to fertilizer companies or sold to the council to go and put on the grounds and all of these different things. So it's repurposed, all of the stuff that's coming out of your garden. But think of how many people are spraying pesticides, herbicides, weed killer, Roundup, all over these things to try and kill them. Or, they've got plastic in there, they've got nails in there, they've got metal or whatever it is. It's going into the compost. Okay. Think of it then sitting around. You've got heavy machinery, often diesel machinery going in and moving all of the stuff and turning it around. That's not obviously that clean. Uh, all of these things are going into to create your compost. And now, if it's not coming from quality sources, we know, as spoken about in previous videos, if quality is not coming in, quality is not going to come out. It's very important. Okay. The lack of diversity that are in these potting soils and these composts that you buy are staggering, really. It's very, very small amounts of different material. They might take some wood chip, they might take some, some of the green mulch waste, and then that's kind of it. They just have to make sure that it fits the standards. Now, a couple on those standards, okay. One is that it can't have any bad pathogens in it, so that's why they heat treat it. The second one is that it cannot be out of a pH range. So we've spoken about pH before. Ideally, it's got to sit between 6 and 8. They can often add things to these potting soils to change that. So if they do a whole batch and it might be slightly too acidic or too alkaline, they might add something in. They might add gypsum or lime or something, which is okay to balance out the potting soil, but then that impacts what goes into your garden. And you might already have too much gypsum, too much lime, or whatever it is, and it throws out the balance in your garden. You want to know that the potting soil you're adding is so well balanced and complete within itself that it's not stealing or taking away whatever, imbalancing all the nutrients that are already in your soil. So have a think about that. That's quite an important one. The pH anyway. The next one is, as I said, the lack of organic matter. So it's heat treated. They've got relatively poor pH balancing skills. There's a lack of organic diversity, so they don't bring in a whole bunch of decent products like we would have hoped. And then the last thing that I will mention is that their environmental impact is, questionable because they're sourcing things that are cheap and maybe not so sustainably sourced. Peat moss is a good example. Okay. I am very careful with where I get the peat moss from. Some people don't like using it because of its lack of sustainability, but a lot of these things are sourced from peat moss that isn't very well sustainably sourced. So it's all in there. The other thing is that when it becomes a premium potting soil, they're adding synthetics to it, synthetic fertilizers like just a basic NPK. It's often in little pellet form. It's synthetic and it's not organic. So again, it could be holding all of these heavy metals. It could be impacting your soil in so many ways. So to summarize, okay, to meet some of these crazy standards that, like I won't go into too many of the details of exactly what the codes are in the standards, but they have to meet these pretty strict standards to be able to put out potting soil, especially if you're going to be using it for food production, right? Although the strict laws are nowhere near as strict as I would like to encourage organics, but they don't have to because it's not organic. But in my opinion, you should understand the difference. So this was the point of the video, is to understand why your potting soils are not conducive to growing plants. You need to buy good potting soil or ideally make your own. So I've got a video on making your own potting soil, your own living soil. It's so easy. So please check out that video. I'll link it down in the description below. Otherwise, if you have any thoughts on this, please leave me a comment. I'm always open to learning. Let's share some information. Let's share some experiences, and let's all grow together and get more people into the garden. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again very soon.